Hello, everybody. It's your girl, Jamie Drew, and welcome to another episode of the Bliss Code Podcast. Another privileged episode of the Bliss Code Podcast for a few, because if you are in my private Facebook community, then you get to watch this live as we're recording right now, and you get to chime in on the conversation if you're up, because it is 9:30 in the morning, uh, Eastern time. And I have a special, amazing guest with me, Lindsey Breitwieser from the CMO Lab. Hey, Lindsey.
Hi, thanks
What's
for
up,
having me
girl?
today. I'm so excited to chat.
Me too. I'm excited to have you and excited for the audience to see you. I see someone has joined us already. So feel comfortable to put your questions, put your comments. This group is full of business owners, movers and shakers, and women who want to have a better life. So they're concerned about their mindset, their wellness, their finances, their businesses. And when they see this title, Grow Your Bottom Line, they're like, okay, how can I get in?
I mean, that's the goal, right? I always talk to business owners, and I'm sure I'll tell everybody like what I do, but
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, I'm like, we're in business. We need to make sales, right? Like, we need to make
Right.
sales to stay in business. So let's not, you know, kind of like tiptoe around that. Let's just be like, all right, I'm doing this to grow. And when I say grow my business, I mean, grow my bottom line,
Yeah.
make more money. So you can either build the life you want, have the impact you want, all of those other things, but you got to grow your bottom line in order to do that. You have to make sales.
You have to. And having the finances, that's not a piece that people typically talk about in the wellness industry. But we know that it's like a severe pain point for people's livelihood. You want to talk about root chakra or their relationships, their marriage, all of that kind of stuff. Let let's let the people know exactly who you are and exactly what you do first, because I'm getting a little ahead of myself.
Yeah.
So Lindsey is the CEO, founder, the big boss, all of the things for the CMO Lab. She's a fractional CMO, which I was like Googling, like, what is a fractional CMO? But tell us what you do. Tell us all about your company. Give us the scoop. You've worked with 8-figure brands. That's one thing I really need you to highlight, because I need people to know that not only have you worked with those brands, but for over a decade, like 15 years, I believe. And so you understand that you know what you're doing. So tell us more about you in your own words.
Yeah. So I am a marketer by trade, and I started my marketing career in I don't like, how do I describe this? Like Mad Men, like in New York City, in the global agents, creative agencies working on the brands that we all know and love, the Listerines, the Estee Lauders, the Band-Aids, the Skinny Cow, Sunkiss, all of them, whatever brand you can
Wow.
think of. And that's how I came up in marketing for a decade or so, learning how to do things on these big brands who had resources, who had top talent, at these agencies. And then in 2018, well, in 2015, I had my first child, and I was like, this is hard. Long, I don't want to be chained to a desk, long hours, all of the things that corporate life kind of can be
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of people. And in 2018, I kind of like gave it my best shot. And in 2018, I decided that I would white label my marketing services. And white labeling just essentially was, I went to a bunch of regional agencies. Oh, this is my coworker today. She's homesick
Let's
from
see
school. Would
your
you like
girl.
to wave? It's okay.
Coworker.
She's homesick from school. Um,
Oh,
so
hope you
she's
feel better soon.
say hello. So where was I? Oh, in 2018, I decided to white label, which simply is going behind an agency curtain. I didn't work for that agency, but to the client, there was no difference. They would tap me when they needed me for higher level strategic services, because I was coming from this background on slightly bigger businesses. Did that for a number of years and realized that there was sort of a really significant gap in the marketing space. And as businesses got smaller, so 8 figures to 7 figures to 6 and even 5, there was a really big gap. marketing companies and marketing agencies start operating in this way where they're simply trading time for service.
Mm-hmm.
They're not really thinking about the growth of the business or marketing as a tool for growth of business. They're really like, hey, you hired me to do your social, so here it is. And the business owner is kind of like, well, should I be doing social? Is this good? How does this connect to making me money? I actually need sales, but you're telling me I got 17 likes this month and I don't know how all of this connects. So there was this really big gap between a business owner, going to these agencies, finally reaching the point where they can outsource or maybe bring in a marketing person. And it was just executionally project focused. And there was nobody really connecting the dots between marketing and the business is actually like financial growth. So I started operating as a fractional CMO and a brand advisor to bridge that gap in 2021. And just this past year, finally was like, you know what? More people need this. How can I reach more people than just doing this one-on-one with businesses? And that was the genesis of the creation of the CMO Lab. And it teaches everybody how I would come in as a fractional CMO and connect those dots. It teaches the framework so business owners can actually learn how to, get out of that mindset of just creating marketing and actually using it as a vehicle for growth.
So, okay, you just mentioned the word mindset. I was like, oh, mindset. And you talked about having the 17 likes, that can rock your confidence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's so important for business owners to have that confidence, to stay in their main character energy, like I like to call it. We deal with a lot of imposter syndrome. Can I do this? Am I the right fit for this? Can I do this without a company name behind me? Did you feel any of that, like when you first started working with these clients? Like, how did you overcome that? Or did you even experience any of that?
I think there's always a little bit of that when you put yourself out there, just because you are in a vacuum. You're like, I've come up with this idea. I think it's good. I created all the stuff for it, but you haven't really gotten any feedback. And I mean, it's the same when you ask somebody on a date, you have that little bit of like fear of rejection. You're like, I'm about to put this out there and I hope it's good. I think it's good. I hope it's good. And I hope it's received well. So I think there's a little bit of that. I usually go back to the line. I'm going to forget her name. And it's going to be one of those things that if I listen back to this, I kick myself, but, she's written books. She has a big retreat. She's a public speaker. Oh my God, it'll come to me later. But she always says when she became a lawyer, and I go back to this often, I promise it'll have a point. She became a lawyer. And when you first become a lawyer, you obviously haven't practiced yet. My sick coworker. And she often says this line of, I'm qualified, but inexperienced. And I think about that often. Like when we're all just starting, the mindset of like, I am qualified. I've passed the bar. I have done this. I am qualified. I'm just inexperienced in doing it in this way. And the more I do it, the more confidence I will build. So you are qualified. You are just inexperienced. And there's a difference. There's a difference between being inexperienced and being completely unqualified. So I often go back to that in moments of weakness and just be like, I have done this. I am qualified. And if I'm feeling shaky, it's probably because I'm just not as experienced in doing it in this way and in my flow yet.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I'm going to hold on to that. Yes. Is it Rachel Rogers that you were talking about?
100% yes. Thank you. I was like, why can't I remember her name?
Yes. When you said lawyer, I was like, Rachel Rogers.
Yes. And what is the name of her retreat? Like, we should all be millionaires.
We should all be millionaires. That's her book. I love Rachel Rogers. I'm so glad that you brought her up. And you're a Carolina girl. I'm a Carolina girl. She's a Carolina girl. So
the connection.
The connection. Yes. She is amazing. I love it. And you know what? Let's go back to the 17 likes, because I absolutely love your approach that it's like, everybody's not going to go viral. Like you shouldn't be like so concerned about your likes and follows and these vanity metrics, because there's real strategies and real work outside of your likes and follows. And I was binge watching some of your content. Oh, this was a good one that you had on there. You were like, oh, my social media grew by like 0 followers this month. And guess what? I had my best month ever. Talk to us about that.
Oh my gosh, funny story. So I didn't post for like a month because life and things were busy. And it was, if anything was going to go, that was going to fall off my plate. I didn't post for like a month, and I ran into a business contact in Target, as one does. And she was like, I had just posted a video, like first one that I had done in literally 30 days. Like I was just dark. And she was like, oh man, I loved your video. And I was like, oh, thank you. I haven't posted in like a month. She's like, I didn't even notice. Like we are so wrapped up in our own little world and our own little narrative. I'm like, oh my God, I went dark for a month. I abandoned. Nobody cared. Let alone even notice. Like they're not going on there and being like, wow, I haven't seen this. So that was like a gut check moment. But also, yes, I did post that because for me, I have a marketing plan that is not based, like I don't make revenue from audience size. Social media is not a big lead generator for me. So it is one of those things that truly I can deprioritize, and it does not impact my bottom line. It is not a huge awareness tool for me. In the way that my other marketing tactics are. So it's just about, I posted that to just say, like, stay true to your actual marketing plan. And if you want to see the results in the bottom line, like that's not the only way to do it. It's just the only one that you probably are focusing on and or know at the moment.
Yeah. I think a lot of people need to hear that because some people are introverted, but they don't want to post. They're a solopreneur and they don't have time to dive into posting. It's not generating the revenue for them like some other action they could be taking while they're sitting there editing or trying to capture their lives or whatever, you know. So I'm really glad to hear you say that. And I've seen other women, other business owners online that I admire, like you said, not have a lot of likes, not have a lot of followers, but they're really doing the damn thing in the real world. And you hear about this all the time. People with tons of likes and followers, they just have that and no revenue.
That could be too. And there's this big fallacy, and I call it the influencer model, which like we've become accustomed to, which is you get on these platforms, you have to generate a big audience to have any sort of value. And what I always challenge there is, yes, having a big audience can do things for you. It can get a brand's attention. It can get a brand deal. Is that how your business makes revenue? No.
Right.
My business is not an influencer model. My goal is not to have a company come try to contract me to create content on their behalf. Having a big audience lends itself very well to that revenue model, or lends itself very well if you generate a big audience to getting speaking opportunities, to be on the stages at these conferences. That again is not that's not my product. That's not how I make revenue. So you really have to challenge, how does this directly connect to how I make revenue if we're looking to impact your bottom line?
Right. And when you work with companies, because right now, are you focusing on small business owners? Like who is your focus right now that you're
right now I kind of have a sliding scale. So there are 3 ways that I work with businesses. It's either in the CMO lab, like the cohort, the course, which is a DIY model of how to make a marketing plan. Next level up from that is brand advisory. That's usually for 6 and 7 figures. And then the CMO lab is for 7 and up. Or not the CMO lab, sorry, a fractional CMO engagement with the CMO lab is 7 figures and up. And that is truly just because a fractional CMO, your real role as a fractional CMO is managing the marketing team. So it has to be a business that can, 1, not only pay to bring in a C-suite executive, but 2, have the resources to execute the marketing plan that we develop. And then you stay integrated and you really help manage and make sure that plan is being resourced appropriately, executed appropriately, and you are responsible for the results. So you typically have to be a big enough business to kind of manage all of that. Brand advisory is essentially I'm handing you the plan and then you are free to execute. So that really cuts down on the cost. You don't have that fractional person managing your team, managing the implementation of it, but you do get the expertise of, hey, here's exactly what you should do. And then one step below that, truly because I wanted all business owners to have access to this framework and basically the school of thought when it comes to marketing, is the CMO lab, where again, we cut down on the cost so significantly because you're doing the analysis. You know, we're going through it together every step of the way, but you're building the plan as we go. So those are the three ways that I work with businesses. And it kind of is a sliding scale of, you know, where do you fall on that spectrum? Depends on what's best for you.
Right. Wow. And how do you determine like some of the things when you're going through, you know, let's talk about your lab, your CMO lab that you created.
Yeah.
And I think, is this just launching?
There's a cohort launching in April.
That's launching.
Yes.
Okay.
So there's a spring cohort. It starts in April and the doors actually open today. So very exciting. And I'll send like a link to a page where everybody can go to read more about it. But the doors open today. I have a free training that you can watch to kind of learn more about the teaching style and the material included and kind of everything that you get. So I can send a link to that and people can check it out. But yeah, there is a spring cohort opening and then there's one in the summer and one in the fall.
Okay, great. That's so exciting. So what are some of the things that you have to deal with? Like, you know, when you work with someone trying to figure out what their road is. Because I love how you say you're doing the analysis, you're figuring out what works, what doesn't, and telling them, hey, this is exactly what you need to do. And I love that because you get so deep into your business that you can't even see it from the outside in anymore.
100%. 100%.
So what are some common things that come up that people need to be self-aware about?
I would say the two biggest things is shiny object syndrome. We want to do everything. We have such big creative aspirations and we want to do everything that we're like, ooh, but this, or ooh, I could do that, or ooh, I could do this. What a marketing plan really forces business owners to do is ruthlessly prioritize and do, what am I going to do right now? What am I going to do with the current resources I have in the next 6 to 12 months? And kind of put those blinders on and be like, all right, execute this and stop looking at this real strategy and this funnel thing and TikTok's new platform and threads and everything that is vying for your attention. So that is a huge watch out. It's just because we are so passionate about our businesses. We want to like get it out in every way possible. But there's another, I speak in a lot of analogies, but there's another great analogy of, if you want to have an impact, is it better to scatter pebbles if you throw them at a lake where they go wide and shallow, or do you want to throw a boulder? You want to go deep and you want to have a big splash. And that's going to require you do a lot less and you have a lot more focus. So that is one, that's a huge watch out. Like, stop scattering the pebbles.
Yes, I'm loving your analogies. I'm with it. Yes.
And marketing is so abstract that I'm like, I talk a lot about roadmaps. I'm like, we're going on a road trip. Pebbles, scatter, whatever I can do to like visually make it make sense. And then there was another one that's a really great watch out. So it's, I mean, really putting the blinders on, having this ruthless focus. Oh, and like you said, we're all really close to our businesses. So the other thing that comes up quite often is this comes up more in brand advisory, where I'm really going through everybody's marketing collateral and their whole, process from beginning to end. Our minds fill in so much of the gaps that we forget that if a stranger is looking at our marketing collateral, like, it doesn't make sense. And I'm victim of this. I think every business owner is victim of this. You have the whole history. You have every iteration of the idea. You have every version of the name, every, point that you want to say. And when you have, we forget that when you have somebody who's never seen it before go through it, there can often be a lot of holes. So
Yes.
it's really helpful to have that third party go through your stuff and just say, like an expert, not just like anybody who's like, yeah, looks
Right.
good.
Right.
An expert to say like, hey, they're going to need an additional message here, or they're going to need an additional step in the process here. Like you're losing them in this part of the journey because this doesn't make sense. Or, so I see that a lot just because we're so close to it. Our brains are like, oh, this totally makes sense. Like, this is totally what I'm trying to communicate. And then you read it as an outsider looking in and you're like, I don't know what this means.
You know what? Something like that happened to me. Was it this weekend? No. Last week. I went to this lecture. One of my favorite guys. I have crushes on like certain people in industries that I love, right? So my latest wellness crush is this guy named Dan Buettner, who I don't know if he invented, whatever you want to say, the blue zones, which is, have you heard of that?
Blue Zone. I love that. Was it on Netflix or Prime? I can't remember.
It was on Netflix. It's still on Netflix. And I went to go see him speak in Charlotte, and I was so pumped. Okay, so for people listening who don't know what the blue zones are, there are these places across the world where they have the highest concentration of centenarians, people that are 100 years old or over, that are still living, moving, shaking, thriving, all of that. So he did all this research, wrote all these books. Go check him out, The Blue Zones. Okay. Go watch the Netflix documentary. So I went to go see him at this lecture. And, I was chit-chatting with some of my peers, in the wellness industry. And we were talking and exchanging information and all that stuff. And so I mentioned main character energy. And I'm like, yeah, I help women with their main character energy. And I just keep talking, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, wait, what is main character energy? Because in my mind, I'm like, duh, it's main
Everybody
character
knows
energy.
this.
Everybody knows what main character energy is, or at least you can put two and two together. But really, sometimes we get caught up in our own industry jargon, because that can translate in so many areas. I was talking to another podcaster, and he actually had like an in-person podcast with microphones and lighting and fans and this and that. And I said, if you were to talk to somebody outside of the podcast industry or filming industry and ask them what a boom was, they would be like, what are you talking about? So they wouldn't know that was some sort of equipment that you use, right? So they would think it was maybe a sound effect. So sometimes we, like you said, we're so close to our businesses that we use these terms and we say things that are truly disconnected from our audience. And we either need to break it down or we need to use the terms that they would use instead of the terms that we've learned to use over the years as we've grown in our business.
That is such an important point that you raised. There's a whole module in my course called consumer focused or consumer centric advertising or marketing rather. But the whole genesis of it is you have to say it the way they need to hear it. And what you had just said about like the terms that they use, like you do have to get yourself out of what do I want to say and what do I think is most important? And well, how did they need to hear it? How are they conveying this issue? Because most of the time people describe symptoms. And again, analogy, but like when we go to the doctor, we're not like, hey doc, I have strep. You're like, hey, my throat is sore, or I have a headache, or I have a fever. Like we describe symptoms. And that is the same when we are looking for a solution that your product or service solves. We're not usually like, so the CMO lab is a course. We're not usually like, you know what I need? A course. You tend to describe the symptoms of the problem that you have. So it's really learning to talk in that language that makes your audience feel very understood, instills that trust, builds that know, like, and trust that everybody hears so much about, is really based in knowing the problem you solve, how they talk about it, how they need to hear it, and getting that breakthrough.
That's excellent, because this is the real way that you're going to make money. by filling in those gaps that just aren't there, that you think you're filling, you don't even know. You mentioned something else that triggered a thought in me. Okay, you said advertising, but then you corrected yourself and said marketing, branding, advertising.
Yeah.
I think I kind of know. I think I kind of know what branding is, right?
Yeah.
But break it, just help your girl out.
Yeah. So marketing is such a broad term. Marketing is such a broad term. Marketing can have anything to do with so this is the way I like to think about it and explain it. Marketing is a vehicle for action. It is what you do to drive eventual revenue, leads, all sales in your business. People do get that confused with advertising. I'm actually in a fractional CMO group, and one of the people, they were talking about a business that they're a competitor of, and they're like, they don't even need to market. Like, they have such brand recognition. Everybody knows who they are. And I was like, no. They don't have to advertise. They absolutely have to market. Because if somebody reaches out, like a lead reaches out, and there's an auto-generated email, and that's marketing. That's walking somebody down the path to a conversion, or nurturing that lead, or walking somebody down towards generating a sale. Marketing can encompass things like price adjustments. It can encompass things like wholesale, distribution. Those are all marketing efforts, how you're getting your product sold. Advertising is an awareness tool. Those are the things that we tend to think of as marketing, like the stuff we can see. When you make an out of home, when you make a print ad, when you make an email, when you make a social post, you're blasting that out for awareness usually. And then branding is basically the things that encapsulate the visual identity, the tone, and the persona of your brand.
Right. Okay.
Like your company, your business.
Right.
Whatever. Those are things like your logo, your color palette, things like that. But yes, advertising and marketing get interchanged quite often. But advertising is a tool within marketing.
So it sounds like to me that before you even start to advertise, you need to have your marketing in place. Because once they start coming, you need to have your tools in place to get ready to get those conversions, or for what people don't understand, conversions, sales.
Yeah.
Getting them to click. The buy.
Sales, or you can define conversion actions. But like you do, most business owners will think all of this through. They just won't really think about it in terms of marketing. But they'll be like, oh, okay, I'm going to have a discovery call. And you're like, all right, that's your main conversion action, right? You're going to have a sales call. That's it. You need to get people to book a call. But it's then taking it a step further and saying, all right, so is your main modality lead generation? And which marketing efforts actually give you the best lead generation, or are going to give you the best lead generation, because you're deciding you're going to sell on this call that you're having. So that's really, a marketing plan thinks through all of that and breaks it all down.
As you were talking, I started thinking about Chinese food restaurants and how amazing they are at whichever one of those words they have done first, probably advertise, because the awareness is just there. You know, when you see it, you just go like, that is a company from my point of view that really never needs to advertise.
Oh, they advertise a ton.
They do? What am I missing? I'm like,
so how many times have you lived in like an apartment building, for example, and you have gotten, or even like a dorm room, and a bunch of like menus slotted in your door?
Okay, that's true.
They're just really smart, right? Like they're just really smart though, because they know like, hey, there's a geographic region for my restaurant that within 5-10 miles, that's where most people are going to order. And they go out and they just like hoof it, and they put their menu in everybody's door. That's advertising. As out-of-home advertising. And they just don't really do much beyond that, because in truth, it's likely not worth their time. If you live
Okay.
far enough away, you're going to go to a different restaurant. You're not going to go to that
Right.
one. They're like,
Right.
hey, you're right here. I'm right here. And I have what
Right.
it's food. So, but that is
I have what you
advertising.
want. It's
They
food.
are going out and putting their menus out there. That's advertising.
Okay. I like that. And you just reminded me of something else that you talk about. I want to take a moment just for a second and remind our live audience to please take your opportunity. Ask a question, make a comment. If you need to know something, now is the time. If you have something on your mind, if you're thinking about something for your own business or somebody that you know, now is the time. Take advantage of your privilege. Don't just sit on the sidelines. Pull up your main character energy, pull up that imposter syndrome and throw it out the window and say what you need to say. Okay. If you don't, boo on you.
Yeah,
Oh, well, you lost your
put me in the
opportunity.
hot seat.
Okay.
Put me in the hot seat. Let's do it.
Yes, put Lindsey in the hot seat. Okay. She is an expert. You literally have an expert at your fingertips. If you don't ask questions or make comments, you're missing out. So, anyway, let's go back to what you made me think about. That you were saying that with the Chinese food restaurants, they know anything more than that is a waste of their time. And it reminds me of when you were talking about on your Instagram how the 8-figure businesses, and you use this as an example because you want to show us what the successful companies are doing, what the ones that are generating high amounts of revenue are doing. They're doing they're focusing on 3 main things and 9 main ways to do it. I've been doing my research, Lindsey.
Yes,
So,
that is right.
so
That's
I
right.
love it because it's like, stop being all over the place with all of these pebbles. I love your analogies. Stop throwing all of these pebbles all over the place.
Yes.
Let's focus in on this big ass stone right here and glue up in the water. You know what I'm saying? Make a
Right.
big impact. Talk to me about that 3 and that 9. How do companies discover it? I mean, I know working with you is a main way to discover it so they can see their blind spots and everything, but they are really missing out. And I'm realizing this as I, dive deeper into what you have to offer. When you don't focus in like that, you are missing out. You're doing like this spaghetti at the wall grab. And instead, you should be focusing on these 3 things and these 9 ways to get back to these 3 things.
Yes.
Give me a little more of a deep dive on that.
Yeah. So you are 100% right. So the framework is actually called the GHOST framework, and it's a 3-step framework that essentially connects like, hey, where do you want to go? Tell me how much revenue you want to make, what your goal is for the year in financial terms, in terms that we can really quantify and measure. And step 2, hey, we're going to figure out exactly which ways are going to drive that revenue. And then what are the tactics that support those? So it's really a way to organize everything. And it really confuses people because I'm like, when 8-figure agencies do 3 things, it confuses people because they're like, Nike ain't doing 3 things. Like, no.
You're not Nike. Let's start somewhere.
Right? I'm like, no, they are. Just when you have $1 million at each thing, obviously the execution of that looks a little different.
Right.
When you're like doing a Super Bowl commercial, or you're like, one of your things is TV. Yes, the execution of that looks a little bit different, but they are still focusing on mainly 3 revenue driving strategies and no more than 9 tactical executions in order to do that. Now, tactics are not the steps needed. That also really trips people up. A good example of this is like an event. Oh, I'm going to throw an event. That's a tactic. Great. There's lots of steps that you need to do to actually, you need to find a venue, you need to book a speaker, you need to cater it, there's lots of little steps. So it feels like you're doing a ton more, but you're still just doing an event. So that tends to trip people up. But yes, so the framework really does focus on no more than 3 revenue driving strategies. The way you evaluate what those are for you is, what do you need to do to make money, or how do you currently make money? And for most business owners at 5 and 6 figures, and I don't want to make too many generalizations, but most of the ones I talk to are going off vibes. They're like, I think every time I go on a podcast, I get like 3 calls. And I'm like, well, do you or don't you? And they're like, it feels like it. I think. So like we're going off of vibes. And what I work to do is go, okay, well, let's put the system and the framework in place so you actually know. Like, let's stop trying all this stuff and being like, well, I think I don't really know. Yeah. Let's figure out how you do know so you can make the decision of, does that drive leads for me? Yes or no? Does that drive sales for me? Yes or no? Who's buying? How often are they buying? Can I increase the average order size? Like, we need all of those data points. That's how you figure out what your revenue driving strategies will be. And then from there, you pick the tactics that deliver those things. Does social media deliver leads for me? For me, it doesn't.
Right.
So cool. If I want to do it, great. But it's lower on my priority chain.
Right.
So that's really what the framework helps you do. You kind of analyze every step of the way, and you use data to really validate your rationale. I'm doing this because the data is telling me it should work. I've seen it work before. I've seen this happen.
Right.
And so that's really how you build that confidence in knowing, oh, my marketing is going to get me to this destination.
Yeah. That reminds me, that thought process, the way you do things is so holistic. That's why I love the way you do things, because it reminds me of the way that I teach people how to get what they want out of life. It's like, first of all, let's decide what you want. Because if you don't know, how is anyone else supposed to know? How is it supposed to come to you? If you have no direction, no path, you have no idea where you want to be, you're not going to get there. Okay.
Yeah.
Or at least not easily, and not, not as soon as you want to. Right. And just taking that and using tried and true methods, right? Not gimmicks, not quick fixes, right? The methods that we know work.
Mm-hmm.
And then seeing the results from there, like knowing what works, seeing the results from there, and just continuing to hit it.
Yes. Double down on what's working, ditch what doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think you hit on something that's so important, even in life, just saying, where is it that you want to go? With such quantifiable specificity is not always easy for people. And I see it on the marketing side as well. I'm like, how much do you want to make? And people are like, well, I just started and maybe. I'm like, say it. It's not my life. Say it. What do you want? Because we can't make a real plan to get anywhere if we don't define the destination, because we're not going to take the right steps. And that's the same with building the life you want. If you can't tell me what the life you want is, then how is it possible that we can craft a plan to get you there? And again, the analogy for that is, say you're going to Paris. Well, there's Paris, Arkansas, and there's Paris, France. Which one?
And it ain't Arkansas, baby. I'm sorry,
like, Arkansas. One of them is like, one of them you can drive to. One of them you have to fly. One you need a passport. One you don't. Like, you're going to have to take different steps depending on the destination you want to go to. So if you just say Paris, you might end up in the wrong one. Like, we need to know with such quantifiable specificity what you are trying to achieve. And that often, does require something like the Bliss Code. Like, you have to own it and have the mindset of like, this is what I'm going to do. And now I can set the path to get there because I've, put the line in the sand. This is what I'm going to do. And you know what? If you don't hit it, fine. We learn something, we optimize, and we change course. But keeping it vague and just trying to like not own it, you're never going to get there.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm sure you realize this, but working with small business owners, especially, it's a lot about their personal growth and personal journey and commanding their sense of self-worth and everything, that you kind of have to get them over that hurdle too.
Yeah.
So
I mean, thankfully with marketing, I find people, you don't start your business because you think your idea sucks. Like there's so much passion, and business owners are so hardworking. And when I come in, it's the benefit of being like, I know you have a good idea and you're probably seeing some sales, but let's fully take the reins now. And like I said, business owners, there's so much passion and they're so hardworking. And just once somebody kind of like clears the brush and is like, here's what you do.
Right.
Then it's like game over. Because they're not afraid of working hard. They are going to double down where you tell them to double down, and they're going to do it. So it's, like with the marketing, they can start to see the results, and then it just builds their confidence from there.
Exactly. And then they won't have to work as hard, because it's like you've given them this framework of what works. So they're no longer on a hamster wheel of doing, like you said, somebody's like, I think I get 3 calls every time I go on a podcast. It's like, no, this is what is actually working for you and what you actually need to do from an expert's eyes. And now they're on that path. And instead of hustling backwards, like they call it in my community, hustling backwards, they can hustle forward and kind of relieve some of that hustle. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And what I love about the framework is that this 3 parts, like, hey, how much money do you want to make? How are you going to make that money? Does the tactic fit? Gives you the skill to essentially do that for the rest of your life. Hey, you want to be a guest on my podcast? Oh, you know what? That doesn't really move the needle for me. Could I do it if I wanted to? Yeah, but if I don't have the time, is it worth it? Or when a new platform launches or another email comes in your inbox being like, I'm an SEO expert, or I'm a paid expert, or I'm this, or I'm that. You have the knowledge to say, that doesn't fit into my plan right now, or that doesn't generate leads for me. Or if you want to be extra spicy, you can go back to the person and go, how is this going to generate leads for me? Because that's my main objective this year. And, they have the opportunity to go, this is how, or I don't know, I'll get you likes. I don't know. Like,
I'll get you exposure.
It really arms you with the knowledge of making really smart marketing decisions for your brand and aligning that with growth. So, and how to do that, pass it through your framework and go, does it fit? Does it not fit? Or what questions? These are my 3 objectives. Can you tell me how it fits within there? And you know what to ask.
I love that. I love that. It gives you the power to say no. You know?
No more shiny objects. Like, put the blinders on. Like, this is what I'm trying to achieve. Can you tell me how this is going to achieve that?
Yes. We just finished up our book club. We were reading this book. It's called Essentialism by Greg McKeown, if you've ever heard of that. Your little coworker.
We've got a whole office today, but you know what? We're doing it.
Well, at least she's sounding, they're sounding like they're happy. They're talking. So
we have trolls on, and they have a snack to try and get through our call, and then we'll deal with the rest.
But I love that, because it's showing that you're a real woman, you're a mother, you have other things going on, and you have given yourself the power and the privilege to command your own lifestyle and to be able to take care of your children like this, which is what a lot of women are looking for. And if you're able to grow your bottom line and put the right things and the right systems in place with working with you, then they get to make decisions like this, where they can be home and remember what's important and remember why you're trying to get the money in the first place.
Yep. Build whatever kind of life you're working towards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I love it. But we were reading the book Essentialism, talking about the power to say no, to eliminate the things that are non-essential, that aren't necessarily moving the needle. And like you said, run it through what you've decided is important. Does it match your mission, your vision, or whatever it is, the thing that you said you were going to put in place, or those 3 items that you said you were going to work on? Does it match? If it doesn't, then no, or at least not right now, or let me do these things first. And if I feel like having some fun with you, then maybe I'll do that, you know?
Yeah. The not
Yeah.
right now is so essential because
Mm-hmm.
we have such grand visions. We have such grand visions for our businesses. Even myself, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. And you have a lot to say. We do. It's just we have such grand visions and plans, but those can often deflate us. So, if we're not
Mm-hmm.
achieving them. So it's one of those, it's
Right.
not right now. It's not right now. It's focus on this right now. And then that can be part of your next marketing plan or the next iteration, because marketing plans and marketing never stops. They are iterative documents. You're never going to reach a point where you're like, well, I guess I'm done marketing my business.
Nope. No, ma'am.
And I love what you said about having that framework, because the framework is so important. And I can't stress it enough. What is essential and what you say no to is going to be different for each business owner and each person. So just having the framework to figure out what those are for you, what your specific essential items are, what your specific goals are, you plug them into the framework. And I much prefer that, and making sure people are kind of equipped with that knowledge to use over and over again, versus like, here's how I built my funnel so you can build yours. And here's just like a couple of steps. It's like, no. That might not work for you. That might not be your essential item. So it's so critical to know that yours are going to be unique, and just how to figure out what they are, not have somebody tell you what you need.
Yes. One size doesn't fit all. That's why you need the expert analysis, somebody like you, to come in and say what needs to be done instead of some blanket thing that just works for everybody. I mean, and that goes for wellness, what I'm doing with my brand, nutrition, all that stuff. You really need to get specific about what it is that you need. And again, going back to what your goals are. And yes.
That's why he's like diving out of the background. He's jumping on the couch. Look, fine.
I understand. I was just telling my sister the other day, like, when you have children, especially if you have boys, get used to them wanting to jump on things and jumping off of things. My son is 18 now, and he was always jumping. He still to this day is jumping over things. So 18 years old, still saying, Ma, look, Mom. And jumping over the couch, jumping off the stairs, jumping over the fence. It just never ends. But
jumping up to hit the top of the door frame still gets me. I'm like, they feel so cool. They're like, I did it.
Yeah, I don't
it
know.
Never ends. It'll never stop.
It never ends. I don't know if you have any holes or dents in your walls yet.
Not yet.
But be prepared for them, because they're going to accidentally bump their elbow or something into the wall, and you're going to have that divot there.
Such things to look forward to.
I don't want to forget this, because this got to me. I want to bring up this one thing: quantifiable specificity. I like how you said that, and I like how it sounds rolling off the tongue. Just a few more minutes, please.
I'm like, hold it together.
Hold it together for like 9 more minutes, okay? I need your mom.
Oh my word.
So, quantifiable specificity is required for determining what you want. Not just saying, oh, I want to have a good life, or I want to have a successful business. It's important for you to determine what that looks like for you. And I think that it's important that you identify that as an important first step. And I like how you said quantifiable specificity. Like, add numbers, add like, what does this look like? Let's map this out. I love that, because I know you have to get specific about what you want, and I like to journal and things like that, but I love how you termed it quantifiable specificity. If you say, oh, I want to lose weight, well, how much? Well, what do you want to get to? You know what I'm saying? Just like we were talking about Dan Buettner and the blue zones and everything. He was saying that if you can't monitor what you can't measure, what was it he was saying? Basically, like, you can't you don't know anything about something until you start measuring it, quantifying it. What does it actually look like? What are the numbers? What are the time frames that you can put to it? Because you also mentioned, okay, what can you do within the next 6 to 12 months? And also, that made me think about how important mindset is for this, because you mentioned you'll get disappointed in yourself when you're after these things that you need to be thinking about 5 years, 7 years down the road, when you want to accomplish your big goals, like how everything eventually gets to that area. But you'll be disappointing yourself if you're trying to work on them now and you know you're not accomplishing that. And I think that's big, and especially with small business owners, people first starting out, knowing that, most businesses fail in the beginning. That is daunting and can work a lot on your mindset, and that actually works against you and against your business. So I think that's so important that you brought that up, so that people understand how holistic of a process this is, and that it's not something. I also love that you mentioned it's not like, oh, come in and do my funnel, like you see somebody on TV, or well, not on TV, but online or whatever, advertising, and it may not work for you. And a lot of people get into these programs and it doesn't work for them. They waste their time, they waste their energy, they waste their money, and they get discouraged. So I think it's so important that you brought all of these things up. So just thank you for being real. That's one of the main things I like about you. And that's one thing that is important to me, authenticity, and showing people the real deal, that there's like, oh, we're not looking for some magic pill. No, we're looking for real life action, what this is really going to take. So stop, looking at, for instance, those 8-figure brands in the wrong way, and thinking that you can do what they are doing now. Go do what they've done behind the scenes and build that framework and build yourself up and everything. One more thing
Yeah.
before we get out of here, because I know the kiddos are wanting your attention.
I'm muting because he's like screaming. I'm like,
I know. And that's okay. Before we get out of here, talk to the mothers. Talk to the mothers that have children like you. How are you, balancing your time, or getting it all done, or doing what's essential for you and your lifestyle and your family and your children and your significant other, like everything that you've got going on. Speak to that woman who's like, wait a minute, I see her kids in the background, or I hear her kids in the background. Maybe this means that I can do it too. Maybe this means, encourage her, tell her how you are living your life, how you are making this happen, and how it's possible for her too.
Well, I mean, none of us are an expert in that. Like, I don't feel like I have it figured out and I'm an expert and like it works smoothly, because when you have children as a part of the mix, you're reacting constantly. Like this is how today is going to go. Well, she woke up with a rash and she's not in school today. So, you're constantly reacting. But the one mindset shift, or the one thing that totally helped me, was I decided that all the things I do have equal value. Like, I used to be the person who was like, this is my work to-do list and all the things I want to get accomplished today. And then I was trying to squeeze the rest of like the dishes, the laundry. I had to change the sheets today or wash the towel or whatever. And I would try to cram those in later. And those were all the things that were impeding what I had to do over here. They were all trying to take me away from the work tasks. And I finally was just like, no, all the things that I do, all the things that I spend my time on have equal weight and importance and value. So it could be packing lunch, getting the kids out the door for school, having a conference call, washing the towels,
right,
doing part of a marketing plan. And like my days became all of a sudden more holistic. All of that work is equally important. All of it is productive. All of it is necessary. So I just finally was like, you know what? This is not impeding for my intention. This is actually part of my life, and it's all equally important. So that's how I approach it all.
Oh, I love that, Lindsey.
Well, thank you. It's helped me a lot, because I've stopped feeling like picking up the toys or vacuuming or something was less important and keeping me from doing the other things. I'm like, nope, that was something I checked off my list for today. And it is important and it has to get done. And I still feel productive. So it's all part of it.
I love it. I love it. Me and my son have been going off of checklists lately, and I taught him how to, because I'm preparing him for manhood and being out of the house because he's getting ready to leave for college. But the same thing, I'm like, put the things you know you're going to do anyway on your checklist. It will help you feel a sense of accomplishment and that this is a holistic part of your life. You know, if you know you're going to do something anyway, you know something is a part of your day anyway, put it on there and feel good that it's all a part of it. Okay, so
yeah, it's still valuable.
It's still valuable.
It's still your time and it's still valuable. And it's things that have to get done.
I love it. I love it. And I've been loving all of your analogies. I'm not going to forget the rock and the pebble. I'm not going to forget the Paris, Arkansas and the Paris, France. These are like takeaways. They're gold. I love it.
Fantastic.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, you're welcome, for being open, honest, transparent, being your real self, being authentic, and showing these people what an expert looks like, how she's living her daily life and everything, and how things can shape up for them. I'm so sure that people are going to take a lot away from this. Tell everyone how they can contact you, connect with you, do another plug for your April cohort that you've got going on. Tell us all the things before we get out of here. Yes, I wish you. I know, that's what I was saying. I wish you would tell us.
No, you can find me on Instagram at the CMO Lab. You can find me at the CMOLab.co, not .com, .co. And if you go to the CMOLab.co/8-figure training, I'm sure at the links in my bio on Instagram, you can actually take my free training that will show you kind of the framework that we talked about today. So it'll kind of walk you through that 3-part framework. It'll give you some good lessons and you can get a really good understanding of what the cohort would be like and what it wouldn't have that. I promise it won't have that. It's a little bit more professional than that. But give you a really good idea of what's inside and the things that you can learn. So check it out. And the cohort opens in April. So if you want to learn more, sign up for email, book a discovery call. I would love to connect.
Yay! Okay, thank you. Thank you. And thank you everybody for tuning in. And we'll see you next time on the Bliss Code Podcast. Lindsey, hang back. I'm going to chat with you for a second and I'll end the live stream. Bye, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.